Hi, this is Gus, and this is the first of several videos that are going to be coming out that are going to be talking about the process of creating a character. Different people are going to be putting them out, so you're going to hear a lot of different processes come up. So I wanted to start with a character that I've already made, that's already been around for a while. As you can see, Aloe has been around for 2 years. And I want to talk about the process I used to create her as a starting point for other people. So when I start creating a character, generally I have some base level idea, something that pops into my head, whether it's an illusion or whether it's a specific person or object. So with Aloe, I started with, as you can probably guess, the aloe flower, which is a plant that is prickly on the outside but heals on the inside. So that kind of led into her semblance, which is that she creates flowers, specifically aloe flowers, and uses them to heal people. But I wanted to continue forward with this theme because I like following themes all the way through and having everything relate and codependent. So why would someone who has a healing semblance, I'd want them to be prickly on the outside. So aloe was going to always come from vacuo, because if you're going to make a desert flower, you might as well make someone from a desert. Beyond that, I didn't have a lot of ideas at the time, but I remember the first thing I thought of was nomads, because I was specifically thinking about Dune, funnily enough, and the idea of keeping water in and relating to aloe and how the actual gel that is inside the plant is from that. So I started with super modern, super Dune, if you know it, where suits keep all of your body's water in and then repurposes it. But then I eventually went backwards all the way to very traditional themes. She dresses like a Bedouin nomad with modifications to make it more aesthetically pleasing. Even going so far as her color reference, as shown, is of a blooming aloe flower. Beyond that, I knew from the start what kind of story I wanted to tell with her as a base level, because I always kind of have this theme in my head, where my most recent character, Asuro, his theme was always going to be stories and the way people perceive them. Aloe was always going to be about disconnecting from what you've been raised as and then accepting of oneself, because Aloe doesn't accept herself. She is someone who hates her semblance, denies that she has one. All these extremes that don't make any sense until you think about someone coming from, say, a warrior culture or something where fighting is important, which helps lead to this gruff exterior with a warm interior, whatever. But beyond that, I kind of had that as a theme and then spread out from there. Why would someone gain this rough exterior even when they're pretty much a softy inside? Well, what about brothers? Because I thought, if you're the only woman amongst a clan of warrior brothers, you're going to end up probably a little bit more rough around the edges, very much more a tomboy. So Aloe has 9 brothers, which is partially because I kept thinking nine-tailed fox and partially because 9 sounded like a good number to me. And of course, changing things around, but making sure that every single one of Aloe's brothers is actually named for an aloe plant. Though, even I think one of them is named after true aloe, which makes it kind of funnier, to me at least. And then I wanted this idea that someone who's been isolated. So eventually in Aloe's story, I knew there was going to have to be a point where she leaves the desert, and I needed some motivation to do that. But knowing that I've created this world where why would she leave? Because she wants to be a warrior. Well, she has to fail, and failing is important. So I led in and instead did where she has a goal and her family has, like, the head of the family has a sword that is gifted by the previous head to the next head when they're getting old, when they're sick, something like that. And I knew there would have to be some contest and that Aloe would lose. And that she would blame it on the fact that her brother's brute strength is what I ended up with. But, like, brute strength was something that they loved and she tried to use against them. The idea that her grace and then lack thereof in situations was her downfall in both sides. So then I had the thought of she leaves the family. But she needs to know how to get to Beacon. So, well, how does a healer or someone who's in training to be a healer end up at Beacon? Well, what if they save someone? Because they need to save people. They can't not save people when it comes down to it. So I had her save someone who was unprepared for the desert. Someone who was a huntsman, but maybe wasn't the brightest at times. So you end up with these little elements that I've come up, like, I know that she has 9 brothers, and then moving down from there, she has this end goal. She doesn't succeed in the end goal, and because she's laid this groundwork before, she leaves to go to Beacon, where this is the theme of rejecting. She rejects her old life to the point where if asked, she says that she's banished. Leaving me in this way having building blocks, and then I filled in all the little details in between that add extra to her character. What do her brothers think of her? Do they all feel that way? What does she think of her father? What does she think of her mother? Who is her mentor? All of these things that add tiny bits that are important and overall will help you add more to your character. If you're thinking about, what is their village like? What is their home life like? Anything like that, especially with villages, how does it work? Are they self-sufficient? Do they constantly need things brought in? I have pages upon pages of documents that I've ended up writing about Aloe's tribe that don't make it into her backstory because it's not relevant. But it's important for me because I like keeping notorious logs of things. Honestly, past that, it was just filling in the interim. How does she feel about the outside world? How does she feel about that? All little things that are important not only during the process, but add to your character later. Because if someone asks, did you ever get to see the world? Did you ever get to do that? They're important little details that you should at least be thinking about. And while they don't fit every story, if they might have relevance to your story, it might be a good idea to bring them into the backstory so that you're connecting these dots. Past that, that's all of how I made Aloe, essentially. The only difference is, say, her semblance, which had help, of course, because it's very hard to make a semblance on your own. Even everyone needs to bounce ideas off of somebody, and don't be afraid to do that. I bounced ideas off of people plenty for this. For all my characters, even. Aloe especially. Her first semblance was body horror, essentially. And to the point where Jell-O shots remains a joke. But just thinking about these things and then at the end not being afraid to ask for help or ask if something makes sense. Because I had a couple times where I asked if something made sense because in my head, it all makes sense. Everything flows out fine, but that's not always true when you read it or when it comes back out that you forgot something, but in your head it's there. Or this detail just, you're like, no, it makes the perfect sense, but when you try and explain it to somebody, you kind of start to realize it doesn't. There's some disparate elements. That's all I'm going to get into because I'm already at about 10 minutes and I'm not going to do a deep dive. But just as pointers, think of individual events and then add connective tissue in between. Make sure your personality has some starting point is what I always do. And then theme. Try and stay on one consistent theme. That is my key grounding for every character I've made past Argo. Which, yes, that's only 2 on the sub, but I have several others. And I may make another video showing a new character and the process I use to build them. So, with that, thank you all, and have a good day.